Continuing our journey through Aries season, we now find ourselves entering through gate number 21. Gate number 21 is known as the gate of control. It is found within the heart center in human design. And as we travel through the properties of the heart center and of gate 21, we're also going to come into realization of the shadow of control, the dilemma of discipline, the gift of authority, and the highest Siddhi, the highest light, which is known as Valor. In the teachings of the I Ching, this is also known as the Huntress. And by getting to the heart of matters, willfulness is employed with consideration for the common good, or if ego is applied, towards exclusive personal advantage. When we consider the heart center in the teachings of human design, the heart center does bring us energy in the form of willpower, and it is very tribal in nature. So 35% of you will have this colored in on your personal human design chart, so known as defined. And that means that there is consistent energy in the form of willpower to help you to stick to your commitments. For the other 65%, that is going to be white in your human design chart. You're going to be known as undefined. And that means that there is inconsistent energy in the form of willpower to help you honor your commitments. So what we really see within that reflection is the majority of individuals will not have consistent access to willpower. They will have that appearing white in their chart, and therefore they should never make a promise. Because what happens is when we promise to do something, but we don't have consistent willpower to carry it through, we end up breaking our promises. We end up letting people down. We let ourselves down. And that often then spirals back into low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-confidence. So for those that do have this colored in, it is defined in your chart. It is really important to know that most people cannot keep a promise. But for you, having that colored in, it is absolutely correct for you to promise and to honor what it is that you say you're going to do, because there's consistent energy there, and because that really does build the trusting relationships within the tribe, the community, and puts you in a position of really being able to honor what it is that you said you're going to do and to carry those things out. So we are in the gate of control, and during this time in the activation, we are all able to experience this energy. So you may have gate 21 already circled on your chart, which means this is a consistent theme for you. If you do not, then you're getting an opportunity during this time, the turning of the mandala wheel, to experience the energy and to learn from its teachings. So in this case, we are really looking at willpower. Willpower in this instant to control the circumstances. It does have a biological connection to the heart, so the organ within your body. So you may notice that during this energy or through your contemplation on gate 21, that you will feel sensations within your heart. And to really notice for yourself, well, how does that show up as you're learning about the different shadow components and gift components and energy themes within this gate? Gate 21 really thrives when it's in a position of control. So if you have this already circled in your chart, you might really sense for yourself that when you are put in a position of control, you absolutely shine. You do your best work when you are recognized for your ability to handle control and really coming into terms of what a healthy sense of control looks like. Now, for everybody, there's energy right now to support the ability to make decisions. And this is decisions over tribal aspects. So things like money, property, business, relationships. So there's this beautiful flow right now during this time that is helping you to step into a position of control, controlling the circumstances over your own life. So the things that you're here to control and to really make those decisions that are going to be in alignment to your highest good. You're also going to notice that whenever you have given control or your power to somebody else in areas that are ultimately yours to control and to direct for yourself, that you're going to feel out of control. You're going to feel absolutely lost or disempowered. You may be noticing this in self-esteem, self-worth, value, how you just feel this depletion of yourself when someone is making decisions for you that are yours to be making for you. And a lot of times we see this when we are too involved with what everybody else thinks about what we should be doing, and we're living a life in accordance to what we believe others want us to do, which then disempowers yourself because you're giving away your power and you're giving away your control. So this energy is really here to teach us to control what is ours and then to let go of the rest. Because we also like to really hold on to things that are none of our business, or they're not the direction that is where your energy flow, your willpower is intended for in order for you to walk towards your highest control, your highest divinity for the highest good. So things to reflect upon as we're going through this energy is really noticing, what are you aiming your energy and your attention towards? And I want to go back for a moment to the image of that flaming arrow, because it really is in the fire sign of Aries. It is about the first house of the self, your presence, new beginnings, and really making your mark by aiming in the direction of what it is that you are wishing to acquire. So this is locking your sights, locking in on a target, pouring your passion and your energy behind that, and knowing that once you set the course of that action, that you are going to hit a target. So what are you aiming that energy and your attention towards at this time? Are you focusing on what truly matters? And what are those flames of that inner passion feeding? So we want to notice, is that feeding the shadow? Is it feeding the light? Are you holding on to controlling circumstances that are not yours to control? Or are you feeling it is time to really take back control and power of what is yours and play a more active role within your own life? This is also part of what is known as the channel of money. So when we take a look at that on the human design chart, this is where we see the connection leading us towards the throat center. So again, notice if you already have this channel within your human design chart, and if so, this is a very big energetic connection for you. You may have gate 45 circled in your throat center, and if that is the case, you are experiencing the full channel during this time, because we are all getting gate number 21. And also reminding yourself that in the event of your day, your week, your interactions with other people, you will likely pass somebody with one of these connections or the full channel, giving you the opportunity to experience this energetic connection. So there's many possibilities for us to step into the channel of money and to step into that flow. What really matters is recognizing it within yourself, because like anything in terms of energy, you're either going to be in the energetic flow of allowing that to be receiving and giving in its natural sense, or you're going to be blocking your flow to that energy. When we have the heart-throat connection, the throat center is all about communication, self-expression, manifestation, and metabolizing. So everything within your human design chart is trying to make its way out of that throat center. Because this is where we see ideas and inspiration now come into the world of form. It moves us forward in speaking and doing and taking the required action. Coming through that gate number 45, it's known as the gate of the gatherer. So you may find in this energetic expression that your voice or your mind, because your mind is also a voice that speaks to you, is going to express itself in the form of I have or I have not. And really becoming aware for yourself of where your belief is going towards what it is that you are acquiring or that you wish to acquire. So where do you feel like you have certain things and where do you feel like you do not have certain things? This energy flow does carry a very strong potential to make or acquire money, but it really needs to have the freedom to make money in alignment to one's wants or wishes. And what that means is if you are allowing a natural energy flow, if you're pouring your passion towards doing the things that really cultivate joy and happiness for yourself, others can benefit from your services, right? There's just this opening of this free giving and receiving, allowing that energy to flow naturally. Then it has the potential to acquire great, great wealth. And not just for the self, but because this is tribal in nature through the heart center, it benefits the family, the community, the organization, wherever you're really pouring that energy towards, if you are in alignment with your truth. It is really here to help us be at home in the material world. So yes, we have a spiritual aspiration, but we're also human. And being human means that we do live in a world that is materialistic in nature. Now, there's going to be different things for different people because we don't all want the same kind of things or need the same kind of things. But it's knowing that you don't have to be poor to be spiritual. You don't have to go without to walk a higher purpose. You can acquire things that are in your highest good. You can acquire things that bring you joy and happiness. You can allow yourself to acquire positions of power, prestige, whatever that is for you. What really matters here is understanding why. Why do you want that? Who is it going to serve? And what benefit will come from it? So you're really getting to the heart of the matter. That is the huntress, looking at yourself and really getting the clarity on where your energy is going, why your energy is going in that direction. Why do you want to acquire certain things? And is it because the heart center says, well, I have to prove myself? That makes me feel worthy. That makes me feel valuable. That helps my self-esteem. Because that would be feeding the shadow energy. That would be a reflection of, I don't have, therefore, if I had that, then I could be happy. So we really want to watch the narrative because happiness cannot be bought in the material world. Happiness is a state of being that is cultivated inside of us. And I'm sure we've all heard that expression that money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure helps. So really looking at the areas of your life where energy flow, money flow is needed to support you. How you live, how you eat, ability to travel, right? Getting really clear on the things that are important to you, why they're important to you, and how can you put yourself in a position of control to move you in alignment to do the work that needs to be done to acquire what it is that you have your sights set on. So also really learning the balance between the material value and your core values. So your core values are the things that are absolutely the most important to you. And I know for myself, when I sat down to really contemplate over my core values, they came up in my own contemplation as health being number one, because without health, I cannot do the work that I love to do. Then it was family, and family can be blood family, it can be soul family. It's anybody who has that energetic connection, because we all need that support network around ourselves. We are tribal by nature. And then the third one was the freedom to do what it is that my heart is leading me towards to help support that bigger sense of family and to help support a very healthy, holistic lifestyle. So really taking the time to know your core values will put you in alignment with the material value that you need in order to operate very well within the material world, bring in the flow of money and resources needed to support what it is that you're here to do, and trust in your position of power to be in alignment to that higher source, and allowing that to then dictate where it is you are going with what it is that you're here to offer to the world. Now, there's also two potential flows to that channel of money. And especially if you have this channel already in your human design chart, your life may very well play out in one of two themes, or you might even find yourself kind of going back and forth between both of them at different points of your life. One of the flow is really by receiving the benefit from other people doing the work. And what this means is you might be in a position of leadership or control over an organization, a tribe, a position of power where you really thrive and you do your best work by overseeing others and handling the resources, handling the assets, knowing who does best in what position, and then also in return receiving the benefits back from that. So that is where we see the tribal essence of somebody overseeing other people doing the work. Now, the question in that is really, are you overseeing or are you trying to micromanage? So micromanaging would be a shadow aspect, overseen in terms of leadership and really supporting others to do what their natural energy flow is and to be their best self as part of the tribe would be the highest aspect of control, where everybody is working together in order to cultivate good returns on investment for the overall satisfaction and success of the organization, the community, the tribe, the family, whatever that happens to benefit from. The other flow from the channel of money is where the individual will dive right in and work really hard and then see the benefits of your own rewards. And for a lot of us, there is nothing more satisfying. And especially if you are a generator, a manifesting generator, and your energy, your response is satisfaction. There is nothing more satisfying than applying your sacral energy, your life force energy towards doing work that you love to do and seeing yourself get the rewards back from that in terms of compensation that feels correct for you. So in a lot of cases, that is being paid fairly for a job well done, getting recognized for your ability to handle the resources, to make a difference, to have a contribution, and really understanding for yourself the flow of your time and your energy based on what you are also receiving back. So that is where we do see a little bit of hiccups within the world, where we have a lot of individuals putting in a lot of hard work in jobs that are not satisfying. And ultimately, they become slaves to the energy instead of really allowing themselves to break free from that old system and to find where they do really feel that connection and that energetic flow that is in more balance in the fairness. So part of control is knowing that you are fully responsible to do the changes that are required in order to put yourself in alignment towards a more natural flow to get and acquire the things that really you do want to have and to release those things that you don't necessarily need because they're based on a conditioned belief that that is what you have to acquire, have to be in order to be enough in the world. So we really want to watch how the energy of money has a corruption within our society today, but it is also a necessary resource in order to be human. So it is your own contemplation and your own internalizing of your core values and what it is you need to be at home in the material world that is going to open up that flow for you as you learn to make peace with what is yours to control and let go of what is not, and really listening to the mind talk, how you believe in yourself and the narrative of the story that says, I have or I have not. This energy is really designed to find harmony, and we do really sing together, we thrive together, the hearts expand together. When tribe comes together and community comes together and family comes together to all do the best they can to contribute to that. So that energy is here to help us look after ourselves and to contribute to the larger group. It also has the opportunity to turn towards greed. And, we see a lot of that out in the world where individuals they want to control money and resources and power and prestige for themselves. We can also notice within us how there's certain things that we want to hold on to that control because we may be afraid that someone will take that from us, or people may devalue us, or maybe something else won't come to replace it. And really looking at our own fear stories around that concept of greed and noticing, does it even bring you satisfaction? A lot of times when we have that energy of greed, that's implying that there is a lack. I don't have, therefore I need more, or I have to hold tightly onto what I do have. So that is feeding the shadow of lack energy. Lack energy is unfulfilled because it'll never have enough. It'll never acquire enough. It'll never be enough. It is always in a state of trying to prove itself to get more. So really noticing, where does that show up in you energetically, and where does that story come from? When we move into the gene keys, so we turn the key to open up the gate. Here we get the inner alchemy potential of learning about the shadow of control, looking at that dilemma of discipline, really harnessing the gift of authority to move ourselves into a higher vibrational field, and considering the Siddhi of Valor, which is the ultimate light aspect that is guiding us towards the divine expression of our higher purpose. So looking at the shadow of control and the dilemma of discipline, here at the shadow frequency, we're going to see that everybody is a victim. The controllers are victims of their need to remain in control, and the controlled are victims of the controllers. And these contemplations here are taken right from the book of the Gene Keys by Richard Rudd. And I highly encourage you to read through the section on Gate 21 to do a contemplation for yourself, but really kind of, feeling that through your body At the shadow frequency, everyone is a victim. The controllers are victims of their need to remain in control, and the controlled are the victims of the controllers. So that element, that victim mentality, that runs through the shadow of every single gene key. And a gene key is the same as a gate. It just gets into that number a little bit deeper to open it up for us. So there's always two ways that the shadow of control is going to show up. You're either going to see or feel for yourself a tendency to be too weak or being powerless to control anything at all. So unable to make a decision, feeling like you just have to conform, not having the fight within you to face that, not wanting to face that. And the other part is really carrying a deep-seated need to control everything in one's environment. And this is where we hold on to things out of a fear that if we were to release the control, something bad would happen. And we all carry aspects of both of those components. There's times where we are the victim and we are being controlled. There are times when we are the controllers and others are victims of our fear stories. And one of our biggest areas of control that we do see in the world is that concept of money. So at the shadow level, if you have money, it appears you have power. And that is what we have been taught. And it's really something to contemplate on for yourself is what is your own story around money? When you think of money and you think of yourself having money or not having money, or you look at your family, your ancestral line around the concepts of money, where do you feel you are so-called measuring up? Because we do compare ourselves to others. That is another shadow component, and we learned that in our last class as we went through opinions. So in your own honest reflection, where do you feel your relationship with money is? And what is your story around money? And then we really want to link this into how your body talks to you, because we're learning about the intuition, the wisdom of the body and coming out of the mind. So in your body, the sensation of control comes in a form of tightness and it comes in fear. And because it is linked to the heart center, you might be feeling those tensions in the heart, the closing of the heart, pulses of the heart. It's no accident that the majority of heart attacks occur on Mondays. At the start of a work week, there is a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. Right? So really looking for yourself, where is your heart, your body talking to you? And where, in what areas of your life are you feeling that tightness and you're feeling that fear, especially in relationship to money, to power, and control? And knowing that that really does stem from a deep distrust in life. We keep repeating the same patterns over and over again because we don't trust ourselves or we don't trust the world around us to have a different course in a different direction. And it's only when you really get to know who you are, you build a deeper faith within yourself, and you build up your self-esteem, your self-worth, and your value. It's only then that you can make a change that is going to be sustaining for you. So being aware of how your body's talking to you, how tightness is held in the body, where fear is creeping in, what your story is around money and control and power. Where do you put boundaries up for yourself in a story of I have and I have not? When we look at the repressive side of the shadow of control, this is where we're going to see submissive. And submissive is any time that we deny our own personal power. So we just cave in. And, this isn't always in extreme cases. These can be tiny little things that you do over the course of your life. But every time you do a tiny little thing, it adds up and it can add up to be a big mountain. And one of the things where it really shows up in the work that I've done is working with clients who are emotionally undefined. So your solar plex is white in your birth chart. And because there is a tendency to feel other people's emotions to such a higher extent, it is really easy to give in to what they want to do or to jump in and change the energy because you don't want to feel that. And what happens is because it's caving in, that child who likely developed that at a young age didn't want to feel that person's emotions or anger or whatever was coming at it. It was easy to sacrifice itself to keep the peace. And we hear that a lot of times, right? Like just, oh, come on, just be nice. Just keep the peace. Just be friendly, right? But are you doing things that are going against the body that's saying, but I don't want to do that. That is not fair. That is not right. That is not mine. And really kind of doing your own contemplation, looking at childhood behaviors in terms of learning to adapt to a world of energy where likely no one taught you the power of your extent to feel, and how that child creative coping skills, coping mechanisms in order to feel safe enough within its own world. And that is where we see control coming in because we learn to control and manipulate our own world by putting up our own boundaries that keep us safe. But that becomes an illusion and it prevents us from really living life to the fullest. So, looking at any areas where you deny yourself personal power, you give in to someone else's emotional pressure, to someone else's fear stories, you give in because you're not feeling that there is another way out. Where are you allowing someone else to have control over you? And when it comes down to it, it is an essence of not assuming responsibility for the direction of our own lives. And it's interesting because people are afraid to do the shadow work because once you see your shadows, once you see your patterns of behavior, well, now you're accountable for what you do with them, right? So once you see, you can't unsee. So people are actually more afraid of their light than their darkness because light just means you are consciously aware. You have shined a light on the situation. And when we pull back those rugs, well, now everything is out in the open. And if things are out in the open, well, now responsibility has to go somewhere. And we are all responsible for our own choices, decisions, and actions. Therefore, to be submissive is to not take responsibility for the direction of your own life. It also shows up, and we have a tendency to blame other people for what happens. It's the government's fault, it's my boss's fault, it's my partner's fault, it's my children's fault, right? So that is a projection of that energy, which often comes from an anger, right? Angry of that suppression. So it's somebody else's fault that I am suppressed. And trust me, I've been there. I'm sure that we've all been there. But when we really examine that, we are the ones that make our own choices. And a lot of times people are not gonna like the choices that you make and the decisions you come up with. And if you have been raised to be the people pleaser, the martyr, the good girl, the good boy, whatever that is, you might have a real need to want people to like you or to fit in. And unless we make peace with, we're not here for everybody to like us, and we're not here to fit into every situation and environment, then it's really easy to keep the narrative of, well, I just have to do that because that's what's expected of me, instead of standing in your own 2 feet and going, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. I don't like doing that. So really kind of being aware of where are you projecting onto someone else a responsibility for what is actually your responsibility. You know, people hate their jobs. Well, what are you going to do about it? Right? And it's not the I don't have any other options. It's really taking that story and looking at it and is that true? Is that a fear story? Because there's a fear to change. There's a fear of the unknown on the other side of that because it is comfortable where you are at. What is the truth to that story? There is a tendency to be afraid to be in control because of that accountability, right? So we're accountable for our actions, our success, our failure. That is such a big theme for this energy of control in its shadow aspects. So there's a tendency to not want to participate in life. And a lot of times, and we may know somebody who has this energy, you may be the person with this energy, but it's like, oh my God, they're just so laid back. They're just so easygoing. Well, in the extreme sense of that, when you really look at it, are they really that easygoing and that laid back and not really caring and making a decision? Or are they hiding from having to take responsibility? I don't want to make a decision because then someone will blame me if that decision is wrong, right? How many people have done that? Afraid of what is going to be. So saying, you know, I'm going to play Switzerland. I'm not going to choose this side or that side. I'm just going to not make a decision, let everybody else make a decision, and I'll go along with that. And then it's either going to work out or it's not going to work out, but it won't be my fault. Right? So we have these stories and these patterns of behavior that we tell ourselves, but it is actually giving away your power. It's refusing to hold the responsibilities that are yours. So you're ultimately a puppet on a string. You're ultimately leading other people, the world of shadows around you, dictate your movements and what it is that you get to do. So really getting to know for yourself, where do you sense? Where does your body feel? Where are you hearing this in this contemplation that you're giving away your personal power and putting it in the hands of another? And really noticing, you know, what causes that submissive reaction within you? Are you feeling emotional energy? Do you have a story that that is your role, your responsibility? Are there certain people that really make you feel very small in their presence? So just becoming the observer, becoming aware of how different things affect you on an energetic level, on a mental level, on a self-esteem level, and just journaling it through. Observation becomes one of the best ways of claiming back personal power, because once you see, then you can start to claim back your patterns of behavior as you are recognizing, you know what, when I'm with this person, I really shrink down. So maybe you need to do something for yourself before you come into their presence. Maybe you need to just be more open in their presence to notice, is it the tone of their voice? Is it their mannerism? Are they so much in the shadow of control themselves in a dominating sense that you just automatically go to submissive? And also looking out into the world of animals. Animals are great teachers. We will see the natural order of things, some that are more submissive and some that are more dominant. How does their body language speak? What are the cues in those relationships? Where do you see reflections of that again within yourself? So using life as your great teacher as you just become the observer, not the judger. And you might want to go back to listen to last week's video on opinions to really put yourself in a place of empowering yourself to look at your shadow without judgment, but through the eyes of love that is there to empower yourself by claiming back your divinity. Because that is the goal, is to look at the shadow and feed it the light, feed it the love, become the parent to the child that is needing to be nurtured inside ourselves. When we look at the reactive side of the shadow of control, this is where we ultimately see control, right? So the really strong energy of control. A lot of times we term this control freak. And maybe we've all had areas in our life where somebody said, well, you're just such a control freak. You're just so bossy. Now, being in control is not always a bad thing. So you really have to feel this energy out for yourself, because there is a light aspect of control. There's a shadow aspect of control. When we get to the gift of authority, there is a shadow of authority. There's a light of authority. So we really want to watch our energetic connection to words. And you might need to be in control. You might be in a position of control, and other people may have a problem with you claiming that power. So you really have to determine for yourself, is your position of power, your responsibility, your need for control, is that serving the highest good, or is it coming from a fear story? And some ways to notice if it is coming from the shadow is you're going to find it really, really difficult to allow any part of your own environment to escape your control. So if you have a tendency to kind of live by the plan, the schedule, how the house is going to be run, the business is going to be run, when certain things are done, how they're done, when it's done, who does them. If everything is so nicely laid out in a package to the point where it is running like a dictatorship, and you might say, well, it runs like clockwork, it runs like a well-oiled machine. This is efficiency, right? Really asking yourself, what happens if you could no longer plan and use that schedule? And if you feel any sort of sensation in your body, especially in that heart center, because this is related to the heart, if you feel a reaction to that, you're holding on to fear of control. You're holding on to the shadow of that. And asking yourself, what is your worst fear? By facing that worst fear, then you're going to see where you are trusting in life to guide you and where you have a deep distrust and a tendency to really hold on and cling on because of the distrust. Not being able to handle change unless you personally initiate it. So you may love change if you're the one that brings it forward, but what happens if somebody else wants to change something? What happens if somebody else comes in and wants to do things their way? Do you have a physical reaction to it? And this can be as simple as loading the dishwasher, and somebody else comes in and puts a couple of dishes in there. Do you move the things around because it's done incorrectly? Do you go into the bathroom and rehang up a towel that somebody else has hung up, or change the toilet paper around? Do you have a tendency to go behind others and fix things right? So really noticing for yourself any kind of sensation to change, any kind of sensation to having to control the environment, how it looks, how it feels. What happens when somebody else steps out of line and challenges your authority? Is there a buildup of anger? Is there a feeling of having to use that voice, having to move into action, or even just feeling within your body? Because you may not physically say anything, but are you seething on the inside? And it's so important to recognize these things because, again, it's not always a bad thing. We don't want to look at this in terms of this is good and this is bad. You're really becoming aware of how your own energy responds. And if you notice that you have a tendency to want to hold on and a tendency to be the planner, to take charge, to have things go your way, to really feel agitated when something steps out of line, the more you are aware of that, the more you can work with yourself to self-soothe. So to really look at that and ask, well, why does it matter so much to you? Why is that so important? Why is that such a big deal? Getting to the root of the behavior and then learning ways of calming down and coming into center and asking, well, what would love do? And even reflecting back, are there pieces of you? Is there an inner child in you that had to pay a very serious price whenever it should step out of the line of authority over itself? So a lot of times we repeat patterns of behavior that we've learned. So where does that come from? Where was I learning to do these? So also noticing that there is a tendency sometimes to maintain control through dominance. And we see this a lot of time of the parent over the child. The parent wants the child to do what the parent wants it to do, but at what point do you allow the child to make mistakes, to try to discover the world, to take full responsibility for what is theirs to have responsibility for? So even looking at, the relationship with your children, your spouse, your coworkers, any areas where you feel that perhaps you're not allowing others to grow. And sometimes we're not even aware of what it is that we are doing because it's such a pattern of, well, that's just my responsibility, so I'm going to handle it. Well, what if you didn't? What if you didn't handle it? What if you were allow somebody else an opportunity to step in and step up? And really watching, do we have a tendency to be judges, taking a moral high ground? So that can be in the form of expectations. Religion is a good example for that one, right? So there's a control within a religion. Anytime that there is a hierarchy, a rule book, there's so many different ways that that can play out. So contemplations for yourself. And again, it's interesting that we have the same image as the repressive side because we can be this controller. We can be the one that's being controlled. But ultimately, when we are acting as the controller, well, the shadow is also pulling our own strings. So regardless, we're trapped. We're trapped if we're repressing. We're trapped if we're too controlling. The secret is to find the balance and to release those attachments. So contemplating for yourself, how responsive are you to change? And what would happen if you let some of your responsibilities go and you were to allow others to handle them in their own time and in their own way? And again, it's a beautiful opportunity to observe, how does that feel in the body? And is there a story in the mind that wants to jump right in to create a story? right? Is there language in that throat expression of I have not? If I let go, I won't have this, I'll have that, right? So we're just really noticing for yourself, how does that energy play out? When we step now into the gift of authority, and I love this image because one of your greatest ways to get to harness the gift of authority is knowing and trusting in your natural human design, energy, type, and authority. So on your personal birth chart, you have an authority. You may have an inner authority, you may have an outer authority, but it's going to list it there for you. It is something that is inside yourself. It's a frequency that is determined by intent. So what are you intending? It goes out into that auric field. And the true authority is going to come from the heart. And it's not the human heart, it's the high heart. It's from the aspects of love, the authority of love, the authority of the higher power versus the mind, because our minds are conditioned. So you can also look at that as the higher will, not the individual will, the human will. So a true authority is going to unite things together rather than controlling them. So in this image here, it looks like everything is dark and stormy. Well, here's an individual, a woman in this case, standing in her power. And because 50% of us are of emotional authority, this image is really showing the importance of not making a decision and not taking action until you have emotional neutrality. Not jumping in when you're on a high emotional wave, not jumping in when you're a low, but giving yourself time for the storm and the pressure to pass before jumping into action and committing your energy. So there is going to be a lot of pressures and a lot of storms and a lot of times where you're going to have to stand your ground. And there's going to be all this other emotions that are whipping around you, other people's energy, the air, the communication, the backlash to that. But to stand in your power and to stand in your divinity is to trust in something within inside yourself that knows when it is time to proceed and the direction to go. And even though there's all this pressure and the fear stories of, well, what will they think? Or they want me to make a decision. I better do this. That is my responsibility. When you become so clear on who you are by really getting to know your chart, your energy, your flow, your truth, your shadows, your conditioning, you will have such a strong faith within yourself that you will not budge from that higher wisdom. And that is the true gift of authority. So really getting to know your human design chart. There is so many different kinds of authority. Emotional authority is 50% of people. We have sacral authority, splenic authority, ego authority, self-authority, outer authority. So really getting to know yours. Another way to look at that is how we are operating from a lower vibration. So if you were to think of your belly button, which is where your solar plex, your emotional chakra is, downwards, sacral and root being at the bottom, in our lower part of ourselves is our lower vibrations. This is our shadow energy. Authority, when we're operating in the shadow, so we're letting the mind and the body rule the way. So the mind as in the self, attached and anchored to the human energy field, authority is coming from fear and control. The mind will override the wisdom of the body. Your spirit does not have a chance to rise. It is hidden away. It is making all decisions based on fear, based on allowing somebody else to control, giving away that power. When we flip it around and we rise up into our higher vibrating energies, so the mind steps into wisdom, the body steps into love, the spirit gets to rise up and meet divine will. Now you are operating from the authority of loyalty and trust. People choose to follow and respond because they are loyal to you and they trust you. Families that thrive, communities that thrive, organizations that thrive, they are built on mutual respect, loyalty, teamwork, trust, cooperation. When we are living in families and communities and organizations that are falling apart and they're toxic, they're living out of fear and they are big on control. They limit resources, they limit power. You can feel the difference between whether you are operating in an environment that is of the shadow and those that are operating within the light. So the beauty and the magic of the gift of authority occurs when both sides of the relationship surrender into each other. And this is where we find that middle ground, right? Because we're not perfect. We are perfectly imperfect. So when we can find that midpoint within ourselves where we are allowing the divine aspects to guide how we show up as a human, but walking that human journey that is existing and having to live in a world of shadows, then you are finding your footing and your bearing to walk the journey that is greatly unknown that lies in front of you, because you are trusting, and you're trusting in the relationship you've built with your soul self, your higher self that is within you. Another way to really look at that is through relationships. So in order for relationships to work, both parties must be in service to each other. So you are responsible for the 100% of your part of a relationship. You are not responsible for how the other person responds, what they do, how they act, but you are fully responsible to be in control of your part of the relationship. And relationships thrive when authority and submission are balanced. So think of that as the yin and the yang energy. The yang energy is authority, it's masculine, it's action, it's doing something. The yin energy is submissive. It's a state of being. It doesn't have to do anything. It is restful. It is contemplative. We have both the feminine and the masculine within us. So this is also the mind. The mind is an authority. It's constantly thinking. The body is submissive. It is receiving. So coming into the harmony with your mind and your body relationship then allows your inner authority to come up, which is where we saw that woman in the middle of the ocean, waiting for the clarity, working on a calm mind and a calm body to hear the truth, not to sit in the energy of the emotions or the fear, but to call in the light to guide the way. True authority based on service inspires loyalty. So when we put ourselves in service to the whole, then we inspire others to follow. And we're all a follower, we're all a leader. So what you do How you walk your talk matters because somebody is always watching that. So we have the hierarchy of man. This is our world. We have those at the very top that are often very corrupt in their power and their control of money. And we have the subordinates underneath them that are reliant on the top to trickle down money, resources, and allocations. So this is the human idea of hierarchy. It is toxic, it is out of balance, it is corrupt. When we step into a hierarchy of a higher authority, here we do see that we're at different levels of consciousness. But what happens when you awaken and you do your shadow work, you move from being in the center to broadening your auric field. And as you continue to do your work and you keep broadening your way out, these outer layers are supporting those at the middle. So the middle can be seen as the seed, and then we start to grow, and then we start to blossom, and then we are flowering. While those that are of that higher energy are constantly sending love into the circle. Love grows and expands, and it supports the whole. When you are stepping into your spirituality, the truth of who you are, you got to stay up in the penthouse. You got to stay targeted to the bigger picture, to your goals, to the highest good. You can't drop down to the basement to sit in the shadow, to sit with somebody in their own self-actualization. They have to do the work to come up to where you are. So a lot of times when we start doing our work, we branch away from some of our friends, our community. We make changes to our jobs or relationships. You change your environment if that feels right for you. And that can be scary because the comfort zone exists in the familiar. We hold on to the control of what is familiar. But as long as you are staying in what is familiar, you'll never see the potential that lies outside when you broaden your horizons and you allow your life force energy to expand and you tap into the support that is there around you to help you grow and flourish. And one of the most important things to remember is you're the only one with your thumbprint. You are the only person with your unique human design, your genetic design. You are the only one that can bring the gifts that you came here to bring out into the world. So we all have something inside ourselves that is here for the highest good of humanity, to add to the ecosystem, to grow in love, to grow in service of the whole, to really embrace the light and shine that light onto the world. But as long as we stay in the stories of comparison and lack and living in the shadow of holding on so tightly to trying to control the circumstances and the directions that are not ours to control, you'll never cut away those strings to set yourself free. So if we were to go back for a moment to look at the puppet, right, you got to release your own attachments. And it's only when you release your own attachments that you are allowed to see yourself start to walk in that confidence. And the world around you, people around you may not change. You may have to face some big storms. In fact, you're probably guaranteed to face some big storms because nothing will make you stronger than knowing you can walk a storm and stand on your own 2 feet and get through it. with the guidance of your higher self. And I'm sure we can all look back on our lives to see where we have walked through storms where we didn't think we could get through it, but guess what? You did. And really looking back to commend yourself for doing what was needed to make it through the change. And you might not be totally happy with the results, but you learned. So you have a reflection now of the person you were at the time that walked that journey, what you've learned from walking that journey, how you can access that to support yourself in changes moving forward, and allowing yourself to really get to know you so that you are in a position of strength before you jump in and you make radical changes. We're not here to be reactive. We're here to be responsive. And responsive means slowing down until you have the clarity of where it is you want to go. Where do you have your sights set on a target? Why are you going in that direction? And how can you pull back your power and control so that you have all of your resources to support your willpower to make it there? And that is trusting in a power that is way outside of ourselves. Because the energy comes from that divine will, that divine leadership. So the Siddhi of Valor, and I just love this, right? Like we are here to be the hero of our own story. You are here to be your own savior, your own champion. You're the one that has to do the work. It is your self-actualization. There's nobody that's going to jump in and rescue us and save us and make all this stuff go away. We have to be brave enough, champions enough, dedicated enough to do the work that is required to see the results of those efforts. So valor is a living energy field. It is literally fed out into your aura. It comes from the energy of nobility. And nobility is not about bloodlines. It's not about the kings and the queens and royalty. It is action. It is taking action into the world of form where you're applying your wisdom, your love, your courage, and above all, sacrifice. And this is sacrificing the small sense of self for the higher sense of unity. We are all in this together. So it's not self-preservating. It is releasing its identity and its control in service for the greatest good of humanity. So a truly valorous deed is an act of absolute self-surrender in which you lay your entire being on the line for a higher ideal. So you're fighting for a cause that you know beyond know is for the highest good. You're doing the right things for the right reasons. And this doesn't have to be big in nature. This is in the moment. It is choosing not to say something because you know that that'll hurt somebody. It's choosing to put up a boundary, a healthy boundary, and not accepting someone's bad behavior. It's deciding to turn and walk in the other direction towards something that is going to serve your highest good. So it's literally doing the right things for the right reasons. So to act with valor is to enter a higher world, a higher vibrational energy field, allowing the divine to guide you. It is surrendering your control to trusting in that higher authority, trusting in the inner authority within yourself. That is that higher authority. Releasing our lower nature to completely surrender to the higher unknown aspects. So you're surrendering your personal will over to divine will. And we all have a beautiful journey to walk. And I love that I have this horse in the background here. In my own contemplations, I turn to paint by numbers. And by picking up some children's paint by numbers, I was afforded some time to just contemplate and be with self. And a lot of times when we make space in our world, a world that tends to be so structured and so controlled and so planned out. And we allow ourselves to be organic by nature, to reconnect those parts of yourself that enjoys and has fun and creativity and self-expression. Then you have opportunities to really get clear on what brings you joy and happiness. What is requiring your attention? Where are you siphoning away all of your energy? Where are you giving away your power and control? And really feeling for yourself. And yeah, you might shed a lot of tears. Your heart might really hurt when you recognize how much control, personal power you've placed in the hands of others. But then there's an opportunity to start reclaiming back parts of your soul, your power, and bringing it home to you so that you can build up your strength, your relationship with yourself, to then walk the journey forward as your champion. So we all have it in us to really walk through the shadow energies, to start to harness the gift aspects, to walk the talk, to do the work that is needed through the shadow, through the light, not being afraid to say, you know what, that does show up in me. And guaranteed, if you really, really are honest with yourself, you will see traces of all shadows and all of the gates within yourself. So what we see out in the world exists within us. The question is, which one are you feeding? And to really get to see the shadow in you means that you're not going to be blindsided by it. It means that it's not going to overpower and come to the forefront of your decisions, but you're going to catch it. You're going to say, oh boy, that's the shadow. And you're going to let it move its way through you, not push you forward into doing something that's going to keep you repeating a cycle that you are ready to break free of. So this is some powerful energy during this gate of control. I hope that it brings you some deep contemplation for yourself. And I look forward to connecting with you in the next gate activation as part of Aries season. Namaste.